I am Gregory Hallows, and you are listening to Preserve Halloween podcast. So, for this week's podcast, we have a special interview with Sarah Frey from Frey Farms. I want to apologize. I've been saying her name wrong. I've been saying Frey. I thought that's how it was pronounced, but it's actually Sarah Frey. Sarah Frey has been described by the New York Times as the pumpkin queen of America. She sells more pumpkins than any other producer in the United States. Her family business, Frey Farms, plants thousands of acres of fruits and vegetables in Florida, Georgia, Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, and West Virginia. With a mission to end food waste in the fresh produce industry, the family makes natural fruit products and beverages from imperfect or ugly fruit. Inspired by her humble beginnings and early life on the farm, she continues to create opportunities for those living and working in rural communities. Frey lives in southern Illinois and is raising her two sons on the same family farm where she grew up. I read her book, I bought it, and I read it all in one Sunday afternoon. And this was after I had already set up the meeting to interview her. And as soon as I read the book, I was very, very excited that I made the call and took the chance to try to get in touch with her and see about interviewing her. What does this have to do with Halloween, I guess, is the first question. Well, as being described as the pumpkin queen of America, that's, right there is enough for me to include her in the Halloween conversation because she produces more Halloween or more. She doesn't produce Halloween. Well, technically, she produces more pumpkins than any other producer in the United States. So, for any time that you're going to carve your jack-o'-lantern, you probably, odds are going to be carving one of her pumpkins, which is awesome. So, and after interviewing her, I know she loves Halloween. I'm very happy with the interview. I hope that you all get to check out her book. It is called The Growing Season. I'll put a link up under the podcast itself so that you can check it out. Like I said, I bought it and I read it in one afternoon. I couldn't put it down. I wanted to find out what was going to happen next. So I'm very pleased with this way conversation went, and I'm excited for you guys to learn more about her. And we didn't just talk about Halloween. Actually, we barely touched on the subject because there were so many things I wanted to ask her. But when you go to the supermarket or Walmart or wherever you buy your pumpkin, it's crazy that odds are it's going to be one of hers, and that is a major accomplishment for someone who started her business while she was still a teenager. So she's a great role model. She is a great business person model. So if you don't know who Sarah is, look her up and read about all the things she's done, and hopefully you will get some inspiration from her as I did. So here we go. Here's the interview. Thank you. And don't forget to always preserve Halloween. All right, you ready?
I'm ready when you are.
All right, so I bought your book and I sat in my house and read it in the course of one afternoon. And the the biggest question I had was, I know that it sounded like that you weren't really comfortable writing it. Is kind of one of those. I guess it's writing a book's hard thing anyway. But now that the book's out and it's getting good reviews, do you plan on writing anything else?
Well, I think for me, Greg, the creative outlet moving forward is going to be in the ABC television series. So I'm an executive producer on that project. The book was optioned for film. And I'll probably be on, whereas the growing season is concerned, it will live on beyond the book in the form of the television series. And that will be another creative outlet for me. And I'll be able to contribute to, the creative. I'll be in the writer's room some, although I won't be writing. I will be providing a lot of the content for the television series. So And it's probably not the first book that I'll ever write. I mean, yes, it was very difficult because I shared so much of my personal story, and which was very hard for me and really scary. But I was also surrounded by a lot of people through the process that loved me and supported me, and helped also guide and sort of read along with the writing and said, I would take this out, I would leave this in, I would lean in more here, So I had a lot of really good guidance along the way.
Awesome. Yeah, that's actually one of the next questions I had was the state of the television show, and I'm really excited with who is behind it because he has been one of my favorite actors and now producers for a really long time. So
Yeah.
you're in great hands.
Yeah, Danny Strong is incredibly talented and just has really been a pleasure to work with. Danny was one of many producers that I met with and ultimately made the decision to put it in his hands. And he has a great team too. I mean, when I met with them in LA, I was able to meet his partner, Mandy Savabi, and she's really wonderful. And I knew that Mandy ultimately would get the project across the line. And, for me, working with someone, and especially, putting my story in the hands of someone, it was one of those things where you wanted to make sure that, there was a good fit. And I feel very good about where we landed.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see more when the time frame on that and when it's coming out because it's based on the book. I mean, like I said, I consumed it in a few hours. I can't wait to see how they expand on that. So speaking of books, I also have your For the Love of Pumpkins book.
Yeah.
After I read this, I went to look and see if you had done anything else, and I stumbled upon that. So I'm about to go through that. So after flipping through that, because it's primarily a pictorial book, do you have any plans? Because I know you're always thinking ahead. You did the Sama juice and the whole ugly fruit thing. Do you have any plans on ever doing like a Halloween specific product line, like marketing as Halloween specific?
Yeah, so I've made a lot of products in my lifetime. I used to create these pumpkin tattoo kits. Nice. So instead of painting or carving your pumpkin, we had manufactured these really awesome little kits. So when my kids were little, instead of turning them loose with carving tools, that's why I created the pumpkin tattoos, so that they could have fun with their pumpkins. And, it was also something easy too. So, if I, as a busy mom, maybe I didn't have time to get all the paint out and go through the process. And we have so many pumpkins at our disposal that, I wanted my kids to be able to do different things with pumpkins. So I created those tattoo kits. So I do love Halloween. It's one of my favorite holidays. And I'm always thinking creatively around what I can, what new creative products I can come up with for not just that holiday, really any holiday. It doesn't matter. I'm a holiday person by nature. And so much of our business is seasonally weighted around certain holidays, watermelons to the 4th of July, Memorial Day, all of the summer holidays, and, pumpkins during fall season, and really everything that I've done has been in business has been geared toward holidays. So, it's only natural for me to think about products that coincide with various holidays.
That's cool. Awesome. Now, speaking of holidays, from the book, it didn't, it seemed like as a kid, you're always, basically too busy to really celebrate much, not even birthdays. Now that, your family's grown, do you concentrate more on having specific traditions for holidays to,
Yeah, I have actually been making Thanksgiving dinner since I was a child virtually. So Thanksgiving has always been the big holiday for me. And then I talk about, in the book, I tell the story of leaving and going to Paris actually for Thanksgiving, and my whole family going like, what? You're doing what? You're leaving at this really pumpkin-y time of the year. But I would make everything. I mean, I would make the turkey, I would make the sides, I would make the whole entire meal for this huge family every year. And then, I just left one Thanksgiving and said, no, I'm going to go to France, and I'm taking Will and Luke, and that's, we're going to go do something really different, really special. But we do have a lot of holiday traditions. Birthdays are incredibly important. I've made sure that my boys always have, really special and memorable birthdays and occasions. And, there are a lot of things we always want for our kids, what we didn't have growing up. And, I have focused so much of my attention too on giving not just my children, but all of my nieces and nephews, the types of experiences and the things that I didn't really have growing up. And I would say last year, not this past birthday, because I spent this past birthday in quarantine, but last year I actually went to Europe and celebrated my own birthday. And it was the first time that I really ever celebrated my birthday. I hadn't really ever done anything special for my birthday my entire life. And then, I just went over the top and celebrated it. So it's not that, I'm not doing things at this point in my life. I don't feel like I have anything to make up for, but I'm just living my life. That's and I'm great. Enjoying it.
That's awesome. So in your book, like me, I grew up kind of in a not so much small town, but I mean that's where I live now. But a lot of what I could view television wise was based on the offerings at the time, and my family is from Georgia, so TBS was a big factor in my growing up. And I know that I read where you basically became a Cubs fan because that's what was shown on television.
It was a WGN affiliate. So that was the one television station that we got when I was a kid growing up. So we would watch, WKRP reruns, MASH reruns. Yeah, awesome. So those are kind of the television shows. And then even though we're closer to St. Louis and Southern Illinois, and this is kind of Cards country down here, because that's what we got on our one little television station. I watched the Cubs and I became, a huge Cubs fan, and I used to sing along with Harry Carey. And also really my experiences, with cities, going to Chicago as a little girl with my dad. I mean, that was the city that I fell in love with when I, got to get off the farm. Yeah.
Now, leading to that question, my follow-up was, I know you were a big Andre Dawson fan, or the book. That's the book.
When I was a little girl, I liked Andre Dawson.
Is it somebody like when I was a kid, I always had, dreams of meeting some of these people that I grew up, seeing on television or whatever. And, my actual day job, I do live events. I put on events with celebrities. So I've met a lot of the people I grew up with. Have you ever met, or did you ever meet Andre Dawson?
No, but I have friends that live down in Florida, and he lives I don't know, two streets over in the same neighborhood. And it was funny. They know him. And I remember finding out that he lived down the street for the first time. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? I wonder if I should just go over and knock on his door. But no, I don't really meeting, celebrities or people, or, that's not really something that does it for me. Although, I think that he is quite a story, had quite a career, and I was certainly a fan when I was a little girl.
That's awesome. Now, this guy from your book would probably be a celebrity to me, but I would love to know more about Dr. Diesel.
Oh, I was just a mechanic that had a shop off of Interstate 57 and had a repair business and got a lot of business from the interstate. And the the Illinois State Police down there in that county. I think he's was on the border of Union County, and they knew when people got in trouble. Doc was the guy to call at any time during the day. So
Awesome.
yeah, he's quite a character in the book, and certainly helped me out of a bind when when we had to hide watermelons.
It reminded me of a lot of people when I grow up, because it's one of those small town who do you know kind of situations.
Sure.
Who can help me out of this?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I keep referencing the book because like I said, just recently read it, and I don't think I've ever read a book that fast, or just couldn't put it down. But
oh, that's great.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you when I found out I was going to interview was, throughout your life, you've had quite a few nicknames. Which one is your favorite?
My favorite nickname. That's a good question. I mean, they've been all good nicknames. The one that I relate to most is Small Fry.
Yeah, nice.
When I was in school, I was the youngest of all of these Fry kids, and
that's awesome.
Probably Small Fry.
That's great. Now, I did read that you've been elected to a lot of representation as far as boards for business and things like that. Do you have any aspirations politically? Because I think I read somewhere in an interview that you thought about representing the farmers politically.
I was recruited to run for Congress. It was a decision ultimately that I made not to run. The timing wasn't right, and I wouldn't rule out anything really in the future.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And that's kind of the follow up to what I wanted to ask you next is, you've been running your business since you were a teenager. Do you have any plans as far as time frame of when you might want to do something else, or is this something you foresee yourself doing until you just retire completely? Or is there any other work related aspirations, that something that you would like to try? Because from what I read, and it seems like you're not scared to try anything. Is there something that you want to do or plan on doing after this is done, or do you just want to farm and keep building your business until it gets your kids take over? I don't know how you have it set up.
So I don't feel like my personal identity is tied to one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there are so many different things that I could do.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of in this mode right now where I know that I'm always going to be connected to agriculture. I know that this business will always, it's extraordinarily important to me.
Yeah.
But business is business, and I could find myself in I could see myself in different roles. And I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I'll probably continue to keep creating and building. And it doesn't necessarily matter in what field I'm doing that in. Yeah. And I'm sort of at this inflection point in my life where the world is my oyster, and I feel very appreciative of that. But it doesn't matter what I go do. My personal identity and how I view myself will never change. And I know that, sometimes when people become CEOs of major corporations, or they hold political office, when they no longer hold those roles anymore, there's a transition period where they struggle with having, lost either, the power of the influence or whatever it may be. And yeah. I don't know that that's really necessarily would be true for me. I witnessed that happening to people that I knew and worked with when I was, in my mid-20s. And I remember recognizing that and thinking, I don't ever want to have to go through that. I want to be free, and I want to be able to do my own thing, and I want to be able to be confident whether I'm doing everything or whether I'm doing nothing, and never really feel that sense of loss when I move on from something and do something different. So it doesn't matter whether I'm in a state of calm in my life, or whether I have a million things going on. I feel like the same person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that's I'm one of those people that always has a bunch of things going on. Like, this interview is for my Halloween society, but I also have a bunch of other things in the fire because I'm one of those people that I don't like idle time. I have to be busy
Right.
all the time.
Right.
And I just, it's one of those, sometimes people say, well, you're trying too many different things. I'm like, well, when else am I going to do it? If I don't do it now, I might not ever.
Right.
So I try to stay busy, and it's one of those things that I think I like the chaos as long as I can kind of organize it or keep it under control.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and that was for me the best part of the book was reading someone else's experiences with some of the things that I've not, maybe not the exact same situation, but kind of the do it until I guess I'm trying to remember how you worded it. I guess fake it till you make it kind of mentality. Because a lot of times when you deal with people that you assume that, just have everything under control, they're no different than you. They're just trying to make what they're doing work the best they know how. And they might not have all the answers, but as long as the end result comes through, it kind of doesn't really matter how you got there as long as you do what you said you were going to do. But that brings me to one of your stories that I think I found the most enjoyable, the Lowe's story of how you tracked down the person to talk to for Lowe's. With this Halloween project I'm doing, I spend probably the majority of my time researching and trying to track down people, and that's kind of how I, was set up with this. Is I read an article about you, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just contact them and see if they want to do an interview. I had no plan on really what the situation would be, other than it seemed like an interesting person. You seemed like an interesting person to talk to. So I said, well, hey, I'll just email them and see what happens. And, now here we are. But
I have a motto about that, Greg, and it's people can't say yes if you don't ask.
Exactly. And that's what I tell my kids. Like, the worst thing somebody can tell you is no. And how much does that hurt? It doesn't really. So yeah, I'm excited because I asked before I read the book, and then I read the book, and I was like, oh, I'm so happy that I actually did this because it worked out great. But I think the best part about the Lowe's story for me was you kind of wrote the mentality of the way I think a lot of times is sometimes getting to the point of being on the verge of what you're wanting, like the pursuit of a goal sometimes is better than actually attaining it.
Yes.
Because you don't realize that's the work that you enjoy, is getting to get to, like, here I am, I found it. And
it's the journey.
Now what do I do? So
it's the journey.
The journey is most often the most fun, and generally it's the best part.
And sometimes we have to remind ourselves to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Before you know it, it's over, and then you're like, well, now what? I guess I'll start a new journey. I guess for me personally, the way I would like to, I guess, end out the conversation. I'm a dad of 2 daughters, And your book is not something my oldest is quite ready to read yet, but I told her all about it after I read it, and I said, you're going to read this book in the next year or two. And I know that one of the reasons you wrote the book was for, I think her name was Olivia. That was, I think you told a story about, she asked you some questions and you never really thought about it. And then, the book came out. But do you think your book would make her and other girls like her, I guess, not proud. Proud's not really the right word, but are you happy with the way it turned out, with the goal of those girls that exist, like Olivia and my two daughters? There's always young girls looking for role models. Do you think that helped you be as open and talk about a lot of the things that had to be very difficult? Do you think that kind of made it easier for you to do it, knowing that there are girls out there who need to hear your story and they're, looking for role models? And now they have a vice president that they can look up to. Do you think that made it easier for you to do?
I think that's probably one of the most fulfilling, or is the most fulfilling thing about writing the book, is when young women and, young girls, teenage girls, reach out and they talk about the different lessons that they drew from the book. So the book I don't tell anybody what to do, and I don't give specific guidance, but you're really able to learn through the experiences that I have and that I share in the book, and reading about those experiences. And that's been one of the most fulfilling things for me now, is that when people reach out and they share what impact the growing season had on their life, and how they maybe look at something differently, or how they found courage because of the inspiration that they drew from the book. So I would say yes. And during the process of writing the book, that was the thing that I kept in mind. And that was the mental image that I would draw up when I would share something very personal. It was the image of a young woman or a young girl reading The Growing Season. And that's the thing that sort of gave me the strength to continue on, and then ultimately put my story out. And now I'm at this point where I get to reap the now it's the good stuff. Now it's the easy stuff, when people reach out and say, this impacted my life in this way, and they share their pictures and their own stories. And everybody has a story, and I like hearing about others, and I like it when people, share part of their story with me. And so, yeah, I would say, it's obvious to me now that the reason for writing and sharing The Growing Season with the world was the right reason.
That's perfect. I want to thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate you having me on and finding us, and having the courage to ask. It's like I said, people can't say yes if you don't ask, and sometimes no just means not today. So I'm glad that we were able to have this time together, and I wish you all the best of luck in all of your future endeavors, and stay in touch with our team.
Oh, definitely. Thank you.
Small fry, counting up how many, my, just listen here to me.